They said they never had children. But 30 years ago, they gave away a black baby girl because of her skin. Now, as their organs fail and death creeps closer, the doctor walks in. She's the child they abandoned. She looks them in the eyes and says one word, "Breathe." And suddenly they're both in tears. The machines beeped softly in the background as Martha Winters sat beside her husband Daniel in the hospital room. The air was thick with fear. Their kidneys were shutting down, both of them. Doctors blamed toxic chemicals from a factory fire near their neighborhood. A cruel twist of fate, and unless matching donors were found soon, they wouldn't make it. The physician on call, Dr. Peterson, delivered the news gently, but without false hope. Matching blood types, rare tissue markers, the national donor list, a long wait neither of them could afford. Any family, the doctor asked? Children. Daniel spoke quickly. We never had kids, but that wasn't entirely true. On the drive home, silence filled the car until Martha whispered, "Do you ever think about her?" Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Every day of my life. 30 years ago, Martha had carried a child, a little girl with deep brown skin. It had been a surrogacy, a promise to her best friend Yvette and Yvette's husband James, who couldn't conceive. The embryo had been theirs, the body had been Martha's. But 3 months before the birth tragedy struck, Yvette and James died in a car crash. No family stepped forward. And suddenly Martha and Daniel, a white couple in a conservative town, faced a storm of whispers, judgment, and pressure. Their families disapproved. Daniel's job was threatened. The idea of raising a black child in Millfield overwhelmed them. So they let her go. They named her Hope and said goodbye. Now, 3 decades later, their lives depended on finding the girl they once gave away. Back home, Martha opened her laptop and searched. Her hands shook as she typed Kira Johnson, the name Hope had been given by her adoptive family. Scroll after scroll, until she froze. A news article, a photo, a smile she would have known anywhere. Dr. Kira Johnson, it read. Pioneering nephrologist joins Cedar Ridge Medical Center. Martha pointed. That's her. That's Hope. Daniel leaned in. And she's a kidney specialist, less than 2 hours away. Was it fate? Or was the universe offering redemption? Before they could decide how to reach out, Martha's phone rang. It was the hospital. Daniel's kidney function had dropped below 15%. Time was up. Their only option now was her. 2 days later, they arrived at Cedar Ridge for a scheduled consultation. A nurse called Martha's name and she stood adjusting her navy dress. Daniel remained in the waiting room, shaken, unsure. In the examination room, Martha's heart pounded. She wasn't ready. Then the door opened, and there she was. Tall, elegant, confident, kind, Dr. Kira Johnson. She extended her hand. Mrs. Winters, I'm Dr. Johnson. I'll be overseeing your case. Martha could barely speak. The child she'd once rocked in her arms was now the woman saving her life. Kira was professional, precise, compassionate. She asked questions, explained transplant options, never once hinted she recognized anything about Martha. But Martha couldn't stop staring. Yvette's eyes, James's calm demeanor. She was both of them and more. Do you have children? Martha asked, the words escaping before she could stop them. Kira blinked, caught off guard. Not yet, she smiled. But soon, we hope. Later, Daniel met her too. His voice cracked. She's remarkable, he whispered as they walked out. Martha nodded, tears in her eyes. More than we could have imagined. Over the next few weeks, their appointments continued. They never revealed the truth. Not yet. They watched her, listened, loved her from a distance, hoping, regretting. Then one day an urgent message arrived. Kira's father, her adoptive dad, had collapsed. Kidney failure. The same disease. The hospital buzzed with urgency. Kira was shaken, fighting to keep composure. That night, another message arrived. Mrs. Winters, your blood tests showed something unusual. Dr. Johnson would like to speak with you immediately. Martha stared at the screen. She knows. The next morning, Kira sat them down. Her face was pale, her words careful. There's a rare genetic variant in your blood, Mrs. Winters. One I've only seen once before in myself. She had run additional tests. The results didn't lie. They were related. Martha whispered through tears, You're our daughter, but not like you think. They told her everything about Yvette James, the surrogacy, the crash, the adoption, the regret, the loss. Kira listened unmoving. "And now you're here because you need my kidney," she asked, voice sharp. "No," Daniel said. "We didn't know, we swear, but now we just want the chance to know you." She said nothing, then handed them a birth certificate. Martha Winters listed as mother, father unknown, no record of a surrogacy. Kira stood. "I can't treat you anymore. I'm transferring your care." And then more quietly, "My father's condition is critical. I need time." They understood. Days passed. Then one night, another text. "The locket you gave me won't open." Martha's reply was instant. Small button on the bottom. 20 minutes later. "Are these my biological parents?" The couple in the photo. "Yes," Martha wrote. "Yvette and James on their wedding day." Then, "My father's in acute kidney failure. They're discussing dialysis." "I can't believe this is happening." 3 people. 1 rare variant. 3 failing kidneys. Bound by a decision made 30 years ago. The next day, Kira sat across from them in the hospital cafeteria. Her face was tired. Her hands shook around her coffee. "I've reviewed all the medical data," she said, "and I've made a decision." She would offer her own bone marrow and blood cells, non-invasive low risk for a regenerative transplant protocol to save all 3 lives, Martha, Daniel, and her father. "You can't," Daniel protested. "You're pregnant." Kira nodded. "I am. 8 weeks, but the risk is low. I've calculated it." But before she could finalize it, Martha stepped in. "What if there's another option, another donor with the same markers but no risk to a pregnancy?" Kira blinked. "Who?" Your half-sister Martha said. "Emily. She's 18, healthy, and on her way here." An hour later, Emily arrived, bright, determined, curious. When she met Kira, she didn't hesitate. "If I can help test me." She was a match. Bone marrow was harvested, cells prepared. That night, Kira sat by her father's bed, holding his hand. Martha and Daniel waited in silence. The procedure worked. 3 days later, Theodore Johnson opened his eyes. "You gave us quite a scare," Kira whispered, crying into his palm. "Your daughter saved you," the nurse said with a smile. He looked over Kira's shoulder and saw Martha, and Daniel, and Emily. Kira stood beside them. "Dad," she said softly. "This is my family, all of it." A week later in the hospital garden, they gathered for the first family photo. 2 daughters, 2 mothers, 2 fathers, and a miracle. Kira named her unborn child Yvette Martha. The spring sun filtered through the trees as Kira walked side by side with Emily. The 2 sisters so different in background and appearance, but now inseparable in spirit-shared stories, as if trying to fill in the years they'd never had. Emily laughed. "I used to think I was the only child. Now suddenly I have a big sister who's basically a genius doctor." Kira chuckled softly. "And I used to think I'd never find a part of myself that had been missing. Then you showed up with the exact genetic gift we all needed." Nearby, Martha watched them with misty eyes, sitting beside Daniel on a park bench outside the hospital. Her hand reached for his fingers laced between his. "I never imagined this," she whispered. "That the child we let go would one day save our lives and walk beside our daughter like they've always known each other." Daniel nodded slowly, and to think how close we were to never finding her at all. In that moment, the guilt they'd carried for 30 years began to lift, not because they had been forgiven, but because the future now held space for healing. Later that afternoon, Kira returned to her adoptive parents' home. Her father, Theodore, though still recovering, smiled the moment he saw her. "You okay, sweetheart?" he asked, reaching weakly for her hand. Kira nodded. "Yeah, I think I am. There's still a lot to process, but I'm not alone anymore." Theodore gave her hand a squeeze. "No matter what you learn about your past, you'll always be my daughter. Nothing changes that." And now, Regina added, "Entering the room with tea, you're going to be a mother. Your child will know they come from a legacy of love of many different kinds." Kira smiled, placing a hand on her belly. "I want them to know it all. The truth, the pain, the strength, every part of it." Meanwhile, Emily moved in temporarily to help with Kira's recovery from the donation procedure. They decorated the nursery together, argued playfully over color palettes, and bonded over baby name books. "What if it's a boy?" Emily asked one evening. Kira thought for a moment. Then maybe James, or Daniel, or something new to mark a new beginning. Downstairs, Martha helped Regina prepare dinner. The two women moved like longtime friends, quiet, efficient, gentle with one another. "You raised her beautifully," Martha said suddenly. "I hope you know that." Regina turned to her eyes, soft. "And I hope you know she never stopped searching for something she couldn't name. Maybe it was you." That night, all of them sat around the same table for the first time. 4 parents, 2 daughters, 1 unborn child. They laughed, they cried, they passed around plates of mashed potatoes and sweet rolls like a regular family dinner, as if it had always been this way. But they all knew it hadn't. It had taken 30 years, multiple moments of loss, a devastating diagnosis, and a reunion neither side could have predicted to make this meal possible. In the weeks that followed, the story began to spread. Not in newspapers, not on the news, but among nurses who'd seen miracles, among patients who saw a doctor walk into a room and change a man's fate with nothing more than her presence. "She's the one," they whispered. The doctor who saved 3 people and found herself along the way. Months passed. Kira's baby was born in early winter, a girl. Healthy, screaming, perfect. They named her Yvette Jamesina. Martha was there at the hospital, standing beside Kira as she held her daughter for the first time. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her tears said everything. Regina cradled the baby next. Then Daniel, then Theodore, fragile but alive, trembling as he kissed the child's forehead. When Emily held her niece for the first time, she whispered, "Welcome to the most complicated and most beautiful family you'll ever know." In the years that followed, the family only grew closer. Holidays were spent together, rotating between houses, laughing about how hard it was to explain their family tree to outsiders. Emily became a nurse. Inspired, she said, by watching her sister save lives and hold families together. And one day, when little Yvette turned 5, Kira took her by the hand and walked her into a room filled with photos. Pictures of Yvette Robinson and James Robinson of baby Kira in Martha's arms, of Daniel holding her locket. "Mommy?" the child asked. "Who are they?" Kira knelt beside her. "They're your ancestors. Your story began long before you were born, and it's a beautiful one." The child nodded, looking at the images with wide, thoughtful eyes. "Am I lucky?" she asked. Kira wrapped her arms around her daughter. "You're loved. That's even better." That night, alone on the porch, Martha sat watching the stars. Daniel joined her, setting 2 mugs of tea on the railing. "You okay?" he asked. "I think, for the first time in decades, I am." She looked out into the dark sky and whispered, "We lost her once, but the world brought her back." Daniel took her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. And somewhere inside, Martha knew redemption doesn't erase the past. It gives it meaning. If this story moved you, let it sit with you. Let it remind you that family is not always about blood. It's about choices, redemption, and healing across time. Like this video, leave a comment. Subscribe to Tim Stories for more true, powerful tales that restore faith in humanity. Because sometimes what we give away returns when we need it most.